Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name's Gareth, this is Tech Check, and today we've obviously had a PC build. We're doing things a little bit back to front now because I've just checked back some of the footage, and unfortunately with having the size of this case in its humongous box, the camera decided to autofocus on that and blur everything else out. So hopefully this is quite nice, but let me know down in the comments. But guys, massively impressed with regards to how this PC's come out. Really good. All the parts, no problems. You can obviously watch the build. So guys, if you're interested, we're building this Xigmatek Aquarius Plus case. First time ever using it. As you can see, come out really nice. It's got this kind of infinity corner, kind of like the Leon Lee XL, but a little bit different, and I'll let you obviously watch the video. So we're using this RTX3070TI from PMY. We've got 16 gigs worth of Vengeance RGB Pro RAM. We've got this Z73 cooler from NZXT. We've got this gaming Gigabyte Gaming 4 DDR4 B660 motherboard. And we've got about 3 terabytes worth of Gen 3 storage. All these fans, everything else included in the video. If you're looking to build this, there's a step-by-step process, and hopefully it helps you get along, guys. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to smash that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a like, and hopefully leave any comments down below. Enjoy. So kicking off then, guys, in any build, get rid of all your other parts because you don't actually need them at this moment in time. The best and most efficient way of doing it is just having in front of you what you actually need. And in this instance, it's our CPU, our RAM, our M.2 or NVMe drives, and of course our motherboard. So all the other stuff has been put to one side, and we'll come to that a little bit later. But for now, what we need to do is we need to get our motherboard out and put it in the safest place possible, which is on top of the actual motherboard box itself. One thing to note here, guys, whilst you're getting your motherboard out, if you don't actually use M.2s or NVMe drives and you've actually got SATA drives, you do actually need to get the SATA cables out of the bottom of the actual motherboard box. Whilst you're in here, it might be a good shout to actually pull out the M.2 screws so you can put those to one side. We need 2 of those. And if you were actually wondering where the Wi-Fi is for this motherboard, it's in the bottom of the motherboard box as well. Let's remove this anti-static bag so we can get access to this particular motherboard. It's quite a nice motherboard. Not used many B660s in all honesty, but as far as the aesthetics goes, looks pretty nice. As we previously mentioned, it does have 3 M.2 slots on this particular board as well. We can clearly see we've got 2 USB 2s down here. We've got quite a lot of lighting capability as well. We've got our USB 3, we've got our USB-C type connector here, and then plenty of PWM connections as well. So obviously this is LGA1700 socket, and in terms of connectivity on the back, we've got our 2.5 gig LAN port, which is here. We've then got our display and HDMI ports, which are there. And then we have got connectivity for Wi-Fi 6 with plenty of USB connections as well. So overall, guys, plenty of connectivity, generally quite good looking, and should look really nice when coupled with the additional parts in that particular massive case as well. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll walk you through how to install our CPU. Really straightforward. Let's do it. Just a side note, whilst I am opening this particular CPU, if you are interested in any of these parts that we are using, I will leave a link down in the description below. So this one is the Intel 12700. So a lot of people ask, guys, why the 12700 and not the K variant? Well, that's for 2 reasons really. First reason is cost. 12700 is cheaper than the K version. And second reason is we're going on the B660 platform, so it kind of makes sense. We're not going to lose out on any kind of frames per second or anything like that. And if they are, they're going to be absolutely minuscule. And like I said, having the B660 platform keeps us within budget. Very carefully remove our CPU from the package itself. Try to keep your fingers off of the bottom of the actual CPU and the IHS at the top. We can open up this LGA1700 socket by releasing this retention arm, opening up the socket, and then you'll see that we have got a triangle down in the bottom corner down here. And what we're looking to do is line that up with the triangle that's on the actual socket itself. There we go. So what you've got to do, guys, is be very, very careful, because on Intel sockets, the pins are in the socket itself. So when you are dropping the CPU down into place, make sure that you don't drop it or force it in any kind of way. You should feel that that now is securely in place. And if you can't see the triangle down in the bottom corner, there is a couple of tabs which need to line up with the actual CPU itself. And a third way is the writing needs to be straight as you're looking onto the board as well. We can then go and lower down the socket and then pull down the retention arm. A couple of cracks and a couple of pops there, and what you'll see is this little black cover has been popped out of place. So moving on to the RAM, guys. This is 3200 megatransfers per second. It's Vengeance RGB Pro from Corsair, tried, tested, and do you know what? I don't think, other than G-Skill, I don't think I prefer any other RAM better, to be quite honest with you. Now, this variation is in white. Obviously, it does come in a number of different variations to suit your needs as well. And I kind of like white, to be fair. It looks really, really nice. Gives the RGB that extra pop as well. So, two little sticks of RAM here, or DIMMs of RAM. And what we'll notice here, guys, is that we've got 4 RAM slots. We want to be populating A2 and B2. So that's the second one and the actual fourth one. You'll notice that some are black, some are grey. We want the grey ones themselves. Dead straightforward. In the middle of the RAM slot, you'll notice there's a little groove, more to the left than there is to the right. All we need to make sure is that that slot there lines up with this slot on the actual DIMM slot. Now, if I was to put it in like that, guys, it don't line up. So we've got to turn it around, line both sides up. When you've got it in, press down equally on both sides until you hear a click. And that's that one done. We'll follow that exact same process for the next one. Again, press down, nice click. And within the space of about 30 seconds, guys, we've now got our RAM nicely, firmly in place in the correct slots. So we're taking advantage of that dual channel memory as well. What we'll do now is we'll move on to the 2 M.2 drives. We're going to install the 970 Evo Plus on our top drive. Number one, the reason for that is because it's twice the speed of this NV1. And what we're also going to do is we're going to probably take about 500 gigs off of this 2 terabyte drive here and put it as his operating system. And then he's going to have about 1.5 terabytes for games and stuff like that that's going to require fast access. And then this one here is primarily going to be for college, university work and photos and that kind of stuff. And we'll install that on the second drive down. Let's do that now and walk you through it. I've always been a massive fan of Samsung drives. They've got an air of reliability about them. Don't normally have many issues with these 970s, 980s, 980 Pros and stuff like that. Obviously, this is a Gen 3 drive, which quite simply means that it's restricted to about 3,500 megabytes, whereas this NV1 is about, I think, about 1,700 and 2,100. So this one's around double the speed, and that's the reason why we'll be installing it on the top drive here. So all I've done, guys, is I've undone our Samsung drive. What we're going to do next is we're going to undo this little heat sink. If I can do it the right way, there we go. So quick screw, and then that will actually come out. We can then take our 970. We need to line up the connectors, which are this side here. So we'll turn it the other way around. We'll put it at about a 25-degree angle, and all we've got to do is slide it in place, like so. And as you can see, it's flopping around here at the minute. And all that's got to do is sit on this standoff. So what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to take one of the standoff screws that we took out of our motherboard box earlier on. The tiny little screws these are as well, guys. Comes in really, really handy if you've got a magnetic screwdriver. So push slightly down on the actual M.2 drive, and then we can go ahead, if you've not got the shakes like me, and we can just screw that into place. And there we have it. In order to put the heatsink back, we do need to take off this film, please make sure that you take this off before reinstalling this heat shield. If not, you'll have a bit of a mess on the top of your SSD. We slide it into place like so, and then we can lower it back down onto the second standoff and actually screw it back in. And there we have it. And we're going to follow the exact same process for the second drive down with our NV1. So this time around, guys, we've got a 1TB Kingston NV1. All we've got to do is, it's located this side this time. Again, about a 25-degree angle, slightly push forward. And again, we can see that that will nicely sit on this standoff here. Take our standoff screw. And if you did have 3 drives, guys, I would also advise putting your fastest one at the top. It has more PCIe lanes to the CPU, and you'll benefit greater with the larger speed as well. So there you go, guys. This one is now installed. It doesn't have a heatsink that goes over it. So you can buy SSDs that come with heatsinks, and generally the faster the SSD, it comes with a lot of well, shrouds, if you like, or heatsinks attached to them to dissipate the heat. So this one doesn't have it, so it will be slightly unsightly, but it's not too different from the colour of the motherboard, so shouldn't stand out too much. And if you really wanted it to be camouflaged a little bit, you could take off the sticker on the front if you wanted to do so. But there we have it. We've got our CPU installed, we've got our RAM installed, and we've got our M.2 installed as well. Nice board from Gigabyte, DDR4, so if you're looking to save a few bucks, then this could actually be a good choice for you. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the case, give you an overview of that, because it's not a case that I've worked with before. I thought I did, but it's absolutely humongous, that Xigmatek. So let's have a look at that, and we'll go through how to install this motherboard inside and all the other stuff that goes with it. Oh, God, blimey. Oh. Oh. There we go. Let's have a look at this. So, Xigmatek Aquarius Plus. So, quick look at this, guys. It can mount 10 120mm fans. It's got 158mm CPU cooler clearance, so if you are looking to actually use a tower cooler or something like that, it can fit up to ATX motherboards, and then it also supports 360mm all-in-ones as well. Fully glass. On the picture on the box, it actually looks a little bit like my case, the Leon Lee XL. So enough waffling, let's get it out and let's have a closer actual look at the product itself, because it's massive. Ta-da! So that's pretty nice, guys. It's really nice, actually. One thing that's massively different is with this butt joints, or this butt joint here between the front panel and the actual side panel. It doesn't have that black bit that the Leon Lee does, i.e. where it actually slots into, which gives it that effect that there's nothing actually holding it together. But yeah, I quite like that. Obviously this comes with 10 installed 120mm fans as well, which, well, it doesn't, it comes with 7, but it can fit 10. Which is really, really good. I think, what did you pay for this, Yusuf? 220 pounds. So 220, that's the equivalent of what a Leon Lee XL would be, but obviously that comes with 0 fans. So if you were to look at installing something like 3, 6, 7 QL120s or 7 Leon Lee Unifans, they're the equivalent of somewhere between 80 to 90 pounds each. So that could be an extra 200 pounds. So if you were to get this case for around 220, a Leon Lee, which is about 220, but then add on another 200 for fans, kind of looks quite appetizing from a cost perspective. So in terms of the back, let's have a look at that. Got plenty of ventilation on here. In terms of the top, we've got USB on the top. We've got individual microphone port and headphone port. We've got an LED button, which I'm guessing is going to actually control the RGB in this particular case. We've got an on and off power button. We've got some nice thumb screws which have been non-rounded off, which is good. In terms of the back, we've got our power supply, which is there. Plenty of ventilation on the back here. None of them crappy PCIe covers at the back here, so you don't have to bend them off, break them, and then it looks a mess if you ever want to actually sell your case or anything like that. Side panel, no, they've screwed it on way too tight. I can't get those off, so you are going to require a screwdriver, or at least initially, to take off this back panel, because that is massively tight. There we go. And even then, it's still quite tight. There's no rubber on these screws either, guys, so just be aware of that. Do we need to take the top off, or can the side come off? The side can come off. In terms of inside, there is no filters that I can see, guys, so that again is something to just be aware of. Obviously, these sides are set as exhaust at this moment in time, so it's not going to really affect that. Having any filters on. In actual fact, it's best not to have filters on if it's set as exhaust, but just something to note, if you wanted to set those side ones as intake, then obviously it is going to be pulling in a little bit of dust. Just being ultra careful, because this is obviously an all glass case and we don't want any damages. What we have got inside here is it comes with a plethora of screws, an instruction manual, and what looks to be a fan hub, which we'll go through slightly later. In terms of front I/O, we have got our HD audio, we've got our USB 2, we've got our USB 3, and then we've got a plethora of connections for our actual fans we've got here. We've got the standard connectors, which are our power switch, power LEDs, and we should have a reset switch, which is there as well. One thing I'm not seeing is a USB-C, which our motherboard does have, and I would have thought for a case that costs £200 plus that would have come with it. So we haven't got any USB-Cs on the back of the particular motherboard, so something to take note of, guys. If you are looking to take advantage of this through USB-C, at least on front or first impressions, I don't see the connector. So on the top, we don't have a USB-C connector either. So that's something to be really wary of if it's something that you need or want, or you've bought your specific motherboard because of it. Generally, most new ones come with it anyway, integrated, but if you are looking to take advantage of it, make sure that your case does have that connectivity. If not, you've paid for extra expense that you don't need. But overall, love the front glass, the infinity display, and this corner here. Whether or not that will cause any, should we say, if you have a bang on it or something like that, whether it's got any extra less integrity or anything like that, it's obviously, I'll catch up with Yusuf in a few months' time and ask him if he's had any dings or anything like that. But generally, they sat on a desk, they don't move. But overall, looks pretty nice. Solid round the back, plenty of room in terms of for power supplies, which is down here. Loads of connectivity for our SSDs and our cable management at the back here. I'm guessing you could also potentially do another 3 fans here as push-pull if you're required. In terms of the top, you do get a dust filter, which is up here, and that can mount a 360mm cooler up here as well as an exhaust. So without that going on too much, guys, let's go ahead and install our motherboard. Glass, there we go. And then we'll do the same for the front, guys, just 4 thumb screws to take off. One thing I have just noticed, there is no lip or anything on that front panel down there. So the minute I took off this thumb screw, the glass actually fell onto my fingers, which is a good job that I was holding it. Now, on this front or side panel, shall I say, it has got a lip, so it's not just going to fall and then damage the actual glass itself. But something to take note of, on that front one, there is no lip holding it in place, so don't automatically take off the screws and then it falls, and then obviously you've smashed the front glass panel. So as you can see, guys, even though the fans are all wired up, we do need to take a little bit more care and attention with regards to these fans, because essentially they're set as exhaust at this moment in time. Why you would have those as exhaust at the bottom, I have no idea. Essentially what you want to be doing is drawing air in from the bottom, and then obviously feeding our graphics card that nice cool air, because the first thing that's going to do is it's going to take that nice cool air and it's going to warm it up. And essentially having a 3070 Ti, 3080 or anything above that is only going to add extra heat into the case as well. So the first thing we want to do is get rid of that heat. So we need to ask ourselves the question of, have they done it due to aesthetics? Which the answer will be yes. But essentially, whilst these are RGB fans and they would look better this way, we need to turn them around the other way to actually get intake from the bottom of the case. We're obviously going to have our Z73 at the top exhausting heat. And then the question is, do we want to actually utilize this side fans here as an exhaust as well? But then we're going to have essentially 3 intake fans and 7 exhaust fans, which I don't think is going to be very, very good at all. So personally myself, I would rather have 3 at the bottom as intake, 3 at the side as intake, and then we've got 3 at the top as exhaust and this rear one here as an exhaust. So therefore we've got 4 exhaust, 6 intake, which will mean that it will be slightly dustier, but I would much rather have cool air coming into the case and it not starving than having loads and loads of exhaust fans and basically just heating up and heating up. So we'll do a bit of a number on these fans here. We'll get them turned around and we'll have a look at it when it's turned on. I'll then speak to Yusuf and say, is this what you're going for aesthetically? Or would you obviously suffer from the performance aspect and have it visually looking better? So we'll come to that when we come to it. So overall though, not too bad. Nice to see some rubber grommets included because they sometimes get a look over. Nice big cutout for anyone that's looking to obviously change the CPU fan coolers and things like that, tower coolers, and they're all in ones. You don't want to be rushing and kind of squeezing to get anything in. Plenty of room at the back. Overall, generally quite good. In terms of how rigid it is, that's the one downside by not having a strut here. It will lose some of its integrity or structural integrity here because it's got nothing holding it up, unlike the XL case from Leon Lee, but it tends to be looking quite good, especially when the fans are installed, giving that a little bit more rigidity. Rigidity? Is that a word? I don't think it is. How rigid it is, that's better. So, right, let's turn it on its side then, guys. Let's get this motherboard installed. So there's our fan hub. And here is all of our screws that we're going to require in order to install everything. And then we've got an instruction booklet that we're not going to look at. We'll put that to one side. If we come across any problems, we'll grab it then. Things to note here, guys, when we are installing these motherboard screws, you're looking for these particular screws here, the one that's got a flat head on the top, okay? And the reason why it's got a flat head is because on your particular motherboard, you've got some grounding pins which are located just around the hole. And that's going to earth the connection between your motherboard and the case so it doesn't short out. So this is going to actually get screwed in through the hole into the standoff which is in your case and hold it firmly down. So you want to make sure that you're using these particular screws here, and you want to make sure that you're using all 8 or 9 of them, depending on whether you've got a center pin on your particular case instead of a screw. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to find 8 or 9 of these screws, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to lower our motherboard into place. So we mentioned before, guys, about the standoffs. What we want to do now is 2 things. The first thing, if your motherboard's got an integrated IO shield, then you don't need to worry about this part. But if it doesn't have an integrated IO shield, you'll find it in your motherboard box. This is the point that you need to put that into the back of your case now, because we don't want to install a motherboard and then think, oh my God, I forgot to install the IO shield. Second thing is, what we can do is very carefully and gently just go ahead and lower into place our motherboard. like so. Now, what I have noticed already is because this back fan is already installed, it's catching on our I/O shield, so I can't actually push our motherboard to the back and to the correct position. So what we're going to have to do is just loosen off this fan slightly here. Yeah, it doesn't like it, so that screw and that particular fan has got to come out altogether. So it's not too hard, not too difficult, guys. Again, just 4 screws. Just be mindful when you take out the last screw, you don't want this falling all over your motherboard. So we'll take that out and we'll pop it just at the top of the case. And then all we're going to do, guys, is just line our motherboard up like so. Then what we're going to do is take the screws that we discussed a little bit earlier, and we're going to require 3, 3 and a 3. So we're going to need 9 in total. And then we're just going to, in this instance, use this Wow Stick 1F, which again, guys, dead good. It's not massively powerful, but you don't need it to for these smaller screws. Just line it up, screw it in to a point where it gets tight. You don't need to over tighten these, guys. It should be absolutely fine. And again, just making good contact with those grounding pins. There we go. There's 2. And what we're going to do, guys, is repeat that process for all 9 screws. You want to make sure you've got each of the holes filled. And even in these more difficult to see and actual use, because of how thin this screwdriver is and how strong the magnet is on it, it comes in really handy, especially on this one here. I can't really see where this is going. I press one button, I hold it down, and not only do I have a light, but I've not got to struggle getting in there, tightening it up. So really recommend this product. Again, I'll leave a link down in the description for it. And again, this one's quite difficult, especially in smaller cases and stuff like that. Having larger hands, I don't even have to worry about it. I can literally just pop it in like that. I've got light, and within the space of 2 seconds, motherboard's installed, or that particular screw's installed. One thing to note on the bottom of this case, guys, is it's got really nice feet. And when I say nice feet, it's got this chrome effect around the top, but then it's got some nice foam feet that go on the actual bottom. Means if you've got like a table that's painted or that you're quite precious over and you don't want to scratch up, then these are going to actually look after it really well. What I'm going to do now, guys, is, as I said previously, this does have a filter on the bottom. And I'm guessing what you could do if you didn't want these this particular fan filter on the bottom, you could put this, if you're having the side as an intake, you could put this on the side panel as well, which could be beneficial. Now, because this is exhaust at the bottom set at the minute, it's not going to be adequate for performance. What we're actually going to do is switch these 3 fans on around at the bottom and put them as intake. And then we're actually going to keep this on the bottom of the actual case to minimize the actual dust that enters into the system. So dead straightforward. Again, all we've got to do is undo these 4 screws. So we've got our 12 screws in total. We'll switch the fans around and hopefully pull any excess cables through to the back of the case. And there you have it, guys. We've now got our 3 fans nicely switched. So again, just to mention, obviously the RGB will still be shown, okay, because the fins, the RGB will shine through these particular fins on these fans, but obviously it won't be as prevalent as what it would be if they were obviously being looked at directly. They're obviously going to be seen from the rear of the fan. We'll go as far to obviously tidy up these cables as much as possible as well. But again, I still think that it would be much more beneficial to have these 3 fans on the side set as intake as well. So we've got the 3 at the bottom, the 3 at the side, and then the 3 at the top and the rear set as exhaust. So we'll go ahead and we'll change these 3 on the side now as well. So there we have it, guys. 3 fans at the bottom set as an intake, 3 fans on the side set as an intake. And what we need to do now is just put our filter on the bottom to reduce that dust that's going to be entering into our system. It is magnetic, which I think is nice. And those foam feet and those nice little creature comforts that come with this case is looking after my table really nicely, which is good. So overall, really, really pleased so far. Really, really easy, guys. And I mean really, really easy. Fans all turned around now to an optimal way to actually cool the case. As we said previously, I think the next thing we need to do is get this all-in-one cooler at the top, get it connected to our 12700, and then we can move on to the power supply and finally our graphics card, and then all the cable mess that goes along with it. But stick with me, let's get in this all-in-one. Oh! So, next up then, guys, is this mammoth, which is NZXT's finest. It's their Z73. Customer absolutely loves the fact that it's got an LCD display and screen that's on the actual cooler itself. I'm going to be honest, and I might pee off a few people here in the comment section, but I'm more of a Corsair fan, especially the H150i Elite LCD. I like that better, and the only reason why I like it better is I tend to use a lot of Asus and Corsair products because they sync really nicely together. Now, I know that NZXT's software is next level, it's really, really good, but I like to minimize the amount of softwares that I have on my actual systems because it becomes a bloody nightmare. You can use things like Signal RGB and things like that, but yeah, whilst this is really, really good, and don't get me wrong, guys, it's an amazing, amazing CPU cooler. Yeah, I tend to edge the way of Corsair when it comes down to the coolers. But don't get me wrong, this is fantastic, and it's going to rip to shreds this 12700 and will keep it very, very cool. So without further ado, let's get it out. I'm going to unbox it all, guys. We're going to put out in front of us what we're actually going to need, because again, it is a little bit intimidating when you get something like this. What bracket do I use? What screws do I use? What's this cable for? It's a bit of a nightmare. So we'll open it up. As you can see, it's brand spanking new. We're obviously using it on LGA 1700 12th gen Intel, so we'll go through the mounting options for this as well. We'll put everything out in front of us, and then I'll show you how to connect it. So let's get on with it. So in the box, guys, we've got the instruction manual. Turn it this way, pull out the tabs, and then on this side we've got our, or one of our 3 120mm fans. Got all our mounting hardware, which is there, and then we've got the plethora of cables for different connections, and then we have the radiator and cooler itself. Right, so quick look then, guys. So we've got our 360mm all-in-one cooler here. This is the particular radiator. Obviously, what my intentions are here, guys, are very, very straightforward. We're going to be putting this at the top of the actual case. Again, this has got a cover on, guys, so it's not going to damage anything. So this can go at the top of this particular case up here. Now, what we need to figure out is, do we want to put it in this side with the tubes right next to the fan, or do we want it orientated this side with the logo the correct way up? And that way we can push it right in under there. And I think that is going to be, not only from an aesthetics point of view, but it's actually going to be not hindering this rear fan as well. We've got plenty of actual room in the fascia of this, or the front of this particular case as well. Now, due to the fact that we have only got 2 DIMMs of RAM, obviously we're not going to have any clearance issues or anything like that, so we can attach that very nicely to our 12700. So that looks like that's the way that I'm going to do it. So very, very straightforward. Now that we've figured out our orientation, we can basically turn that like that. And then all we've got to make sure of is that we know that this bit here is at the back of this case. So when we're installing our fans, we obviously want them as a push or an exhaust. We want to make sure that the fans or the cables themselves are coming out this side, closest to you. So when you put that into the case, you can easily cable manage these. So very, very straightforward. Copy the same thing there. So 1, 2, and again 3. All the cables coming out this back side. All we've got to do then is secure that in place with the 12 screws that come in this pack here. So in front of us, guys, we've got all of the hardware or mounting hardware required for this particular cooler. So what we want to do is get rid of as much of it as we can. So AM4, obviously for AMD, we've got an Intel system, so we don't need them. So we can disregard those altogether. We've got one back plate actually, so we're going to require this. Now, due to the fact that we've got LGA1700, you'll see on this back plate, these little pins here can actually be pushed in or out. For LGA1700, you want to make sure that they're pushed in as far as they will go. And that way it will fit nicely for this CPU. So we do require this. This is our mounting bracket. And as you can see, the Z73 already comes with the Intel mounting bracket pre-installed. So if you are actually installing this on an AMD system, then you will need to, all you got to do is twist that to one side, hold the phone, twist it off, and it will pull off nicely. Again, you can pop this on, twist it, and it will go back on. This is our screws for our actual fans. So there is certain ways of doing this, guys. You've got the long screws that go through the actual fan into the radiator, and then short screws that go through the case into the radiator. And I'll show you that very specifically because I've heard horror stories of people utilizing the long screws through the actual case into the radiator and damaging the fin stack and potentially the whole all-in-one as well. So we'll come to that very shortly. We've then got this pack, 4 thumb screws that we're going to obviously need. That tightens down our all-in-one to our socket. And then we have got also 4 standoffs of one size and 4 standoffs of another size. Now, very, very easy to recognize what we need, guys. So for LGA 1700, we need the standoffs that are the exact same size either side. All we've got to do is literally push this onto the back of our motherboard. These 4 things actually protrude through our motherboard. We can then screw each one of these onto each one of these corners like so. And then what happens is that will then sit on top like this. And essentially we then use one of the thumb screws to tighten it all together. Rightio then. So we need a long screw and we need a washer, guys. So long screw washer goes through the actual fan itself, and then we can push that into the actual radiator. At this point in time, we don't want to screw them down tight. What you tend to find is if you screw them down too much, you won't be able to get them aligned correctly. So I like to do one in one corner and then one in the opposite corner, the other side. Wiggle the fan around a little bit and it will just fall into place. And what we need to do is make sure that we've got all 4 in each fan, which totals 12 altogether. And I'll be back very shortly. So there we have it, guys. So as you can see, we can still maneuver these fans around a little bit. So whilst they are all in, what we can do now, because they're all lined up, we can go ahead. If you've got an electric screwdriver, all good. If not, no problem. Again, I'm not going to over tighten these screws, guys. There's no need to over tighten them. Essentially, if we tighten them too much, even though the screw's massively long and it's got to go through the fan, it could potentially protrude the fin stack on the other side. So there's no need to do it too tight. So all I'm doing is I'm running the screwdriver until a point it stops. And that's it. Again, just do that for all 12. What we're going to do is essentially just pick up this. And this is why I said you want the cables coming out this side of the actual radiator. So when we come to cable manage it, it's all going into the back of the case. Again, dead important, keep that cover on over that pump so you don't get that thermal paste everywhere. Undo these clips, we'll push the cables into the back of the case, and then we're going to actually attach the radiator to the top of the case using the small screws and one of the washers as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this first one through this middle one like that. We're going to do the second one through that middle one like that. And then we're going to do this third one, which is here, and we're going to push that one through the top up here so it's out the way as well. What I'm wanting to do here, guys, is move this across. I'm just looking to actually pull these cables through as much as possible. And essentially, guys, if you've got 22 hands, you can hold the radiator, pick up screws and screw it in all at the same time. So one screw, one washer. This is going to be a ball ache. But what we'll do is we'll put the washer there. We'll put the screw through it like this. And all we've got to do is just tighten it up slightly like that. And there we go. As soon as you've got one screw in, you'll be fine for a couple of seconds. What I would advise now, go ahead and populate all of these screw holes with all 12 screws. Make sure you are using the washer. There's a reason why they provide you with washers. I would also advise, guys, don't tighten these screws down fully until you've got all of the actual screws inside and installed. So there we have it, guys. 12 screws at the bottom, long ones with washer. 12 screws at the top, small ones with washer. We've correctly cable managed our fans so the cables are going out the back. We've kept our cover on for our pump, which is here, so we've not got thermal paste anywhere. And then the next thing to do is to actually push on the mounting bracket or the back plate for our actual motherboard so we can actually attach it to our pump, to our socket. We can remove this little cover at the back here. Now these screws are tiny, and if you don't be careful, you will, well, you'll thread them off. Trust me, I know, because I did it in my Leon Lee ones, because I weren't as careful as what I'm being here. So again, this will just be 4 little screws, undo these, and then this should just be able to be taken out of the play. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Fantastic. Right. So that should then, there we go. Just come on, you can do it. There we go. Right. Take that out. But essentially what we're looking to do here is take our back plate and line this back plate up with 1, 2, 3, and 4 holes on the back of the motherboard. There we go. All 4 nicely in. Now, one thing you do need to be mindful of here is when you apply pressure to this, it might pop out. So it's a good idea to actually stand this back up gently, like so. And we've got our 4 standoffs. 1, 2, 3, wait, stay there you, 4. And then what I'd like to do is quite simply hold the back of it and then just screw in 1 in one corner and 1 in the other. So you can do this with your fingers, dead straightforward. There we go, there's 1, 2, there's number 3, there we go. All 4 are nicely in place. So there we have it, guys. Back plate, 4 standoffs, all nicely installed. The next thing to look at is our cooler itself. We can remove the actual cover. And there's things to take into account here, guys. We've actually got our USB connection, which is here, and then we've got our power connection, which is here as well. Now, we want to try and keep this as tidy as possible, because that's the one thing that I'm not a huge fan of about this particular all-in-one. It's got so many cables come off it, okay? So the good thing about the Z73 and most, shall we say, display pumps is the fact you can change it in software, okay? You don't have to worry about it being orientated this way or that way or whatever way. So essentially, we just need to figure out which way is going to be best for us so that we can cable manage it most efficiently. So, do we want it like this? Do we want it like, well, we can't have it like that because it's the cables or the pump cables aren't long enough. So we've got an option of it like this, or we've got an option of it like that. Also, the other thing to take into consideration is we've only got 2 sticks of RAM in at the moment, but what's the clearance going to be like on this A1 slot if we were to put the tubes at the side? Also, I'm not a huge fan of this kink here, to be quite honest with you, but having it mounted like that means that the cables are coming out the top for the cleanest route or routing of the cables, should we say. Maybe we can play around with them cables a little bit afterwards, but yeah, I think we're going to be stuck with it like this for the time being. And whilst we're not occupying A1 and B1, I think this will be the nicest way of mounting it. So all we've got to do, we've got thermal paste already attached to the bottom of the pump itself. We can have a play around with these cables a little bit later on. Ideally, I would like it like that because, well, it looks nicer, but it means that essentially the cables are coming out of here, and me trying to get those cables in there might be a bit of a ball ache unless I take the RAM out and then put them in afterwards. But it might also mean that it's a bit more of a tidier run up there as well. I quite like that. And if he does want to put another 16 gigs worth of RAM in, it won't be pressing up against it. We're going to change that. What we're going to do is I'll pop that there. Let's just have a look at these cables that come with the pump itself. So we have got, well, this is our USB 2 connection here. This is really, really straightforward, guys. In fact, we'll do it as we talk because it's going to be easier that way, because I know a lot of people like to follow along. So essentially what we've got on the side of our pump is we've got this cable connection here. So what we should be able to do is just turn that round, pop that in there. Come on, there we go. So that's in. And again, that will look much nicer going up there than what it would if it was like that, coming off the side and routing everywhere else. So that's all right, I like that. That's good. So that's number one. Then what we've also got is we've got this one, which is going to provide pump power. And it's also going to provide power to all of those fans as well, which is daisy chained. We're obviously going to provide power via SATA. So let's show you this. Right, okay. So this is going to go into, this connection here is going to go into our pump itself. Again, just be careful here. It should only go in one way. It's this particular way here. So turn that round. There we go. So that pushes into there. And then once we've got that in there, guys, what we have got is 3 different things, or 4 different things coming off it actually. So we've got this one here, which is an NZXT cable. This is if you want to daisy chain any other NZXT products to it. We're not going to actually use that, so we'll put that to one side. We have got a splitter cable, a PWM splitter cable. So this is going to actually plug into these 3 top fans up here. So we will be using that. We've then got SATA power, which is going to be required to power the pump. So we're going to need that. And then what we've also got is we've got our CPU header or CPU cable that needs going on our header on our motherboard as well. And then this one goes through the back all the way to the front down here to USB 2. So quite a lot of cables, guys, just to get this LCD actually displaying. But what we're going to do now is, rather than struggling to connect these, I wanted to connect them there and then. So now all we've got to do is concentrate on actually getting those thumb screws in the right positions. So again, we'll take off the cover like so. We've now determined that we want the actual pump down here. What we can do, guys, I'm going to find it easier to do it with a screwdriver, because if not, I'll be covering the camera and I'll have no focus. It's very, very straightforward. I'm just going to put one of the thumb screws on this side, and I'm going to make a few turns, and then I'm going to stop. I'm then going to take the thumb screw for the opposite side. Make sure if you are using a screwdriver, it's quite a powerful one. You don't want to drop these thumb screws on your motherboard. And I'm going to put it on the other corner and a few turns. And I'm going to rotate that now to the other corner. There we go. We're on. And then we want to put this one on a few turns. And you can do this with your thumb, guys. It's just, I'm trying to do it for not getting in the way of the camera. So once we've done a few more turns that way, we come over here, we tighten this one, and then we can go to the opposite side, a few turns on that one, and so on and so forth. And you need to do this, guys, until it becomes quite tight. So there we have it, guys. Hopefully that was focused in and I can actually zoom in and show you a little bit closer. I only did it with the screwdriver because I didn't want to be in the way of the camera. And hopefully now you can see that we've connected, obviously, our USB and our power. And what we're going to do now is go ahead, connect everything that we're required to make everything work in the back. So the first thing we need to do is push these cables down behind the back of our fans into the back of our case. Before we push these cables into the back, guys, again, I mentioned that this cable needs connecting to our CPU header. This is a 3-pin connector. That's a 4-pin PWM. There's a little black bit at the back there. You just need to make sure that that lines up with the actual cable. So all we've got to do is push that on, like so. And again, we'll try and cable tidy this particular cable as much as possible. And then all we've got to do is these 4 cables here, push through the rubber grommet into the back of the case. So there we have it, guys. We've nicely tidied the front of those cables up to make it look like one cable, and having the actual pump cables coming off of the bottom means that the connections are on this left-hand side, which then means we can run in a straight line all the way to the back of our case. What I'm going to do now is turn the case onto its back, show you how many cables we've got in here at the minute, and then I'm going to connect these 3 fans which are at the top here. What we're looking for is the 3 fans, which is 1, 2 and 3, which are those fans there. And this is the reason why I make sure that I know which fans they are, especially if they were RGB. It would be more prevalent, but it's not in this case. But essentially we know this is this fan, this is this one, this is this one. Then what we're looking for is our daisy chain, which is off of our pump. So essentially what we need to do is we need to take one and plug it into here. Very, very straightforward, guys. As you can see here, there's a connector on the top here and there's a connector here. All we've got to do is push those together like so, and that is one connected. We do the exact same for number 2, like so, and then the same for number 3. And then, guys, that is all of our front 3 fans all connected. We then need to actually plug our USB 2 in. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this cable, not quite like this, but it'll run down here through a grommet at the bottom down here into the front of the actual case itself. And then in order to power everything, we require it to be powered via SATA power. Let's go ahead now. Let's get that fan hub installed, and then let's get our power supply installed, and I'll walk you through it as well. Let's move on to the headache, which is RGB, guys. So if you have got this Xigmatek case, you will notice that you will get an RGB hub that comes included. Now, one thing to note here, and one thing that I dislike straight away, is this Molex connection. Obviously, it only powers the hub, okay? But with that being said, we're in 2022, guys. I would have liked to have thought that this would have been powered via SATA, but not to worry. Essentially, we're going to power it via Molex, which will require a Molex connection from your power supply, or PSU, however you want to call it. And then essentially on this hub, we have got the controllability of the LED speed, the mode, and the fan speed. We have also got 8 fans that can be connected to this particular hub. And then on the back side, we've also got an LED connector, an LED connector. We can also operate these particular fans with the reset switch, which we can push into this particular hub itself. And the reset switch on the top of the case can control the fans. Now, we've also got a data connection. And this is what I would like to do. I would like to connect this connector here into our data connection, which goes in like so. Push that in. And then on the other side of this particular cable, we've got a 5-volt addressable header. We've also got what's known as a VDG connection. Now VDG are primarily for Aorus or Gigabyte motherboards. All we're going to do, guys, is we're going to plug in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fans into this particular hub. You can control it via the buttons on the hub itself, and you can also control it via the reset switch on the top of your case if you plug in the reset switch into the bottom of here. So on the back, it does come with some 3M tape that we can quite easily peel off, and we'll do that and we'll stick it in a position which we're happy with once we've got everything connected, so that we can kind of tidy everything up. Now when we're pushing these in, there's a connector. All we've got to do is push that in to number 1 and it clicks into place. Number 2 goes into here, number 2, and then number 3, and then that is our bottom 3 fans all connected. I then want number 4, number 5, and number 6. So I'm going to take fan number 4, which is this one here, and plug this one in, like that. And then I'm going to take fan number 5 into number 5. There we go. And then fan number 6. There we go. And then once I've done those, I've got my last fan, which is our rear fan, which is number 7. There we go. So dead straightforward, guys. All we've done, 1 to 4, 5, 6, and 7 in there. We're going to connect this via Molex, and we're actually going to control the fans and the coolers via this RGB 5-volt addressable header here. So hopefully we can download the Gigabyte software and then we can control its headers. So therefore we won't need to take the back off the case and control it via these buttons. I may also connect the reset switch as well, just for ease. If Yusuf wants to just press the reset button and cycle through the modes and stuff like that, because I don't think it's going to be any problem just doing that. If he doesn't want to actually change the colours, he doesn't have to download any RGB software or anything like that. So then guys, now that we've pushed all our cables through to the front of the case, what I'm going to do is actually connect these cables before we actually put in the power supply. So I'm going to give you a top-down look at how we connect and where we connect all of these connections. So far, that will only leave our 8-pin for our CPU, our 24-pin for our motherboard, and then our PCIe power cables for our graphics card. In order to actually control all of these fans that came with the case, I can show you the 5-volt connection header, which is here, or it's the VDG connection. So all we're going to do is literally connect this 5-volt addressable header to this connection up here, which is a 3-pin, and it's actually clearly labeled VDG. You can only label it, or you can only connect it one way. There's 2 pins and then a 1 pin. So we just need to go ahead and push that one onto that connection there, and then we can push the excess through to the bottom of the case. The next one is going to be our USB 3.0. And again, on this, we've got a little notch here and then a notch on our USB 3. Again, just be careful with this. I've seen so many people bend the pins. All we've got to do is twist it to one side and then line it up straight and push it in. And you should hear a nice little click. Again, straighten up the cables, push all the excess through to the back. What we've got then is our USB 2 header, which can connect to one of these 2 connections here. We're actually going to connect it to this one. And the easiest thing, guys, on this one is you have got a missing pin, which is this one just here. So if you have the USB facing upwards, you should be able to just slot that one nicely into place, like that. Our next one, guys, is our USB 2, and it goes into this connection here. Now it is slightly tight, so we just need to bend it round. Again, there's no writing on this one, but it follows the exact same premise as the last one you've just put in place. There we go. And then we can just pop it into position. Again, just push the excess through to the bottom of the case and try and keep the cables as tidy as possible. The next one is our HD audio. And in this one, we've got a pin missing, the second one on the top row. We know that there's a missing pin on the bottom row, so we should be able to just put that one in. Again, just be careful, don't push it too hard, and then push the excess through to the back of the case. So guys, that's all of those. The next ones are the ones where people come a little bit stuck. They are the most difficult ones because essentially there's too many pins here for a lot of people to actually go, oh, that one goes there or that one goes there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the easiest one first, and that's the power supply switch. On the back of the power supply switch, there is a little triangle which is located on one side of this particular connector here. That indicates the positive. What we want to do is to connect that to the top row, and it's the first 2 pins on the top row. Okay, so we want the positive on the left hand side or closest to me. It goes on just there. We've then got the hard drive light or HDD light, again indicated by positive and negative, which is just there. We want to make sure the positive is on the left hand side. It has got a triangle, and that goes at the bottom 2, and it's the first 2, so that goes on just there. And then the only 2 cables which are left are the LED positive and LED negative. Now you can clearly see that via the positive and minus signs which are on each cable. The positive goes on the further left hand side, and then the negative goes on the one next to it. So there we go, guys. Power LED positive, then negative. Then you've got your power switch positive and negative, and below your positive and negative power LED light, you've got your HDD light, which is positive, then negative. Once they're fully connected, again, we can push the excess through to the back of the case. One thing that I'm really struggling with this particular case, and it's the only thing that I've come across so far, is whilst it's got 3 fantastic grommets at the side, you've got a large grommet at the top, and you've got a cutout for the 8-pin CPU. There is one cutout at the bottom of this case, and it's right in the center. I've actually had to push these front IO cables through some tie zip points, because other than that, it would have been coming out the bottom grommet here and coming around the motherboard to connect. Now, for some people, they don't care. Some people, they want it to look as good as it possibly can. And again, for the HD audio connector, again, I've had to run it all the way and then down the back of the fan and then up to this particular connector, just so that the cable's not coming all across the bottom of the motherboard. So not the end of the world, but you would have liked to have thought that in a £200 case that there would have been specifically designed cutouts for where these particular cables go. So a little bit of a grudge against the case there, because it's made it much more difficult than what it needs to be. The other thing to note is, because of where the cutout is, if you actually go ahead and install these fans, you'll find it very difficult to get those connectors through that cutout, because you don't have enough room. So what you will find is you'll have to take out the fan to put the connectors through, then put the fan back in afterwards. So just so you don't fall by my mistake, push these cables through before you actually tighten down your actual fans as well. So guys, we've connected everything on the motherboard so far. The only thing left to do is our 24-pin and then our 8-pin, and then obviously run PCIe cables, shall I say, through for our graphics card so we can actually power those. So we're going to install the power supply now, and I'll show you exactly how to do it. Oh, there we go. So power supply of choice, guys, is this RM750 from Corsair. I always say it, guys, I'm a massive fan of Corsair. I love, don't get me wrong, Seasonic. I love EVGA for power supplies. 10-year guarantees. You get what you pay for, guys. This is obviously the thing that's powering everything else within your system, and you want to make sure that you spend that little bit more to get that clean power delivery and make sure that you're not going to have any additional faults, because there's nothing worse of when this goes, it tends to take out either a GPU, a CPU or a motherboard, and it just expense adds up. So we're going to open up this, we're going to get the necessary cables out, and then we're going to connect them, and I'll show you how to do that now. So in there comes with the 4 screws we're going to require in order to actually install it into the back of the case. Also gives us some zip ties, which is pretty good because we're going to require them. And then we have a whole box or plethora of cables here, which we're going to actually need as well. There's our RM750 from Corsair. Really nice, reputable power supply. Really, really, really good. It's going to last you that 10 years. You get your guarantee with it. It's all in black. You've got plenty of connectivity at the back. We've got our 24 pin, which connects into here and here. We've got our two CPU connections, which connect into here. And then we've got our graphics card connections into obviously here or here. And then we've got our Molex or SATA connections into here. So we'll run through that very shortly. Don't forget you'll need your 4 screws to connect it to your case. So we'll do that now. So connecting the 24 pin, guys, dead straightforward. You've got the larger connector, make sure it goes all the way in, and then you've got the smaller connector. And again, push it all the way in. You've got one that says CPU and then one that doesn't say anything at all, okay? So again, guys, these look identical, but they are not. So just be mindful of that. You want to make sure that the one that says CPU is connected to the CPU. Again, goes into this one down here, says CPU. We need SATA power, so we'll take this one. Again, this one's very, very straightforward, guys. Again, it's just a 6-pin one. It says SATA up here, so we can just connect that one to SATA. Next one is really, really straightforward as well. It is our Molex connection. And I don't suppose that most people will be requiring a Molex connection, but if you do, again, you can just plug it into one of the 6 pins, which are there. And then last but not least is our graphics card PCIe cables. Now, I'm not sure whether this PNY graphics card requires 1 8-pin or 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect this one here, like so. And then we're going to put an extra one in, just in case it requires 2 8-pins. So now, guys, we've got everything that we require in order to install our power supply into our case. Things to note here, guys. If you're in, like we are, one of these kind of cases or a Lian Li case, you want to make sure that the fan is not pressed up against the back of the motherboard. It's not going to be able to breathe, and you're going to probably run it much hotter than what it needs to be. You want to ensure that either it's facing outwards towards a vent, or it's got somewhere where it can either pull a fresh air or it can exhaust warm air as well. So let's get this put into the back of the case, remembering the 4 screws. So remembering what we've just said, guys, we want to make sure that the power supply actually is facing outwards with the fan coming outwards. We can then push it up to the edge of the actual case like so, and we can secure it into place with the 4 screws. So there we have it, guys, nicely all in, no problems at all. So one thing I would note here is we've still got this RGB hub, which is obviously floating around now. What my intentions for this is we've still got this panel, which is here. My intentions are to stick it on the back of here, so when it goes into place, it only hides all of these cables as well as all of these cables as well. So whilst it may look very unsightly at the minute, my intentions are quite clear on what I want to do with it. I don't really want to put it up here and then have all these cables floating around absolutely everywhere. So essentially, what we want to do now, guys, is we want to make our Molex connection and our SATA power connection, which is there. We want to run our 24 pin, our 2 8-pins, and then our 8-pin CPU power all the way up here. And once we've done that, I'll show you how to connect it. So dead straightforward, guys. When we're connecting SATA, you can see this little L, which is here. We've got an L, which is down here as well. We should just be able to push these 2 together. That's it. And now we've got power going to our LCD pump. For Molex, here we are, guys. All we need to do is push this end from our power supply into the back end here. There's a flat surface and there's a flat surface, and then there's a bit of a curved bit here. Just push those ones together like so. Oh, there we go. Once you've got them in, you just want to make sure that they're fully pushed. And now that's provided power to our hub, so we should be good there as well. And again, guys, what we'll do is we'll start with the easiest one, which is our 24 pin. Dead straightforward, guys. There's a clip here that clips on this right hand side. So we need to bend this around like so, and then push it firmly into place. Again, you need to make sure that you hear that click, or it actually grabs around it so it doesn't come out and you've got a firm contact. There we go, nice. For the CPU one, guys, obviously we had to disconnect it, so you can go ahead and reconnect those ones together. And again, that connector goes up in this corner up here. The easiest thing for this is to make sure that the clip is at the top, and then you can push that straight into place. Again, push the excess through to the back of the case. So what I've done, guys, is I've put in the cable tidy again, and I've stuck the actual fan controller to the back of it. What we're going to do now is screw back in the screws, holding this firmly in place. So there we have it, guys. That's about as close as we're going to get it. After a bit of jiggery pokery, putting this cable tidy back in place, putting the fan controller to the back of that with that sticky tape, putting a few zip ties in to hold the cables in where they should be. We have got a little bit of cables up here, which I think is absolutely fine. Obviously, this is what this cable tidy is designed for. It's there for SSTs, and obviously to keep all the cables out of sight, out of mind. So I don't think it looks too bad at all. We've got this free, empty, clear, clutter free space here, and absolutely everything down here. We don't want to see cables through the actual fans themselves. So what we're going to do now is move on to the fun bit, which is actually the graphics card. So bear with me. So on to the fun bit, guys. And this is where, well, most people say the magic happens, but this is the GeForce RTX 3070 Ti. Absolutely fantastic gaming card, guys. Whether you're going to be at 1080p high refresh, 1440p high refresh, and even touching on 4K gaming, this is going to be more than capable. I personally like this card. I think it's the card that if I didn't have 3090 Ti, then I would have had this as one of those intermediate bits, because I run 1440p 165 Hz monitors, so this would have been absolutely perfect, whether you're playing COD, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's Apex, whether it's Valorant, whatever it may be. 1080p, 1440p, you would have been absolutely fantastic with this particular card. So obviously there's loads of different variations, EVGAs, whether it's a Strix model, whether it's a, what's the other one from MSI? There it is. Gaming X Trio or Gaming Z Trio, you'd have been absolutely fine. So what we're going to do, unbox, get it installed. We've left our PCIe power connectors, which are here. We're going to have to try and tidy them up because everything else is looking sweet, except for them cables there. So let's unbox this. Let's get it installed. So first time unboxing. Brand spanking new. Ooh. Are we ready? Let's move this to one side. Da-da-da. Oh, that's pretty nice. Look at that. Let's put that to one side. There's nothing else in the box, guys. It's totally empty. Not too heavy as well. That's one thing which is a massive benefit. So we'll open up this. Oh, it'll never be new again. I always like to keep these anti-static bags, guys. Again, comes in really handy if you want to sell it or anything like that, or store it or anything like that as well. So a couple of good things here, guys. What we've got is we've got this, well, it's metal. You've got this total metal shroud on the top, or at least feels like metal. It is metal. It looks pretty sweet. You've got the accelerate fans in the middle. It's a triple fan design. What connectivity have we got? We've got 3 display ports and 1 HDMI port at the back, which is pretty good. We've got this large heat sink down here, and we do need dual 8 pins as well, which is quite cool. So again, nice shroud on the back. We've got a pass-through design at the back here as well, honeycomb design. And again, guys, just a nice looking graphics card. Again, I'm not sure whether we'll get any lights through this GeForce RTX bit, but either way, it's a sweet looking card. So let's get this installed and I'll show you how to do it. So all we've got to do, guys, I like to do this just to make sure. Now, obviously, I know that this is a 2-slot card. So dead straightforward, line up your graphics card with regards to the PCIe slot, and we'll notice that we need slots 2 and 3 taking out. So we need to get rid of number 2, which we can do by just undoing this screw here. I'm surprised that didn't fall out. They normally do. And number 3, we get that one out as well. There we go. So now we've took out our brackets, what we can do then is make sure that our PCIe slot is opened up. If we had a cover across this part of the graphics card, you could take it off, but we don't have one. We want to turn it upside down. We want to offer it up to the PCIe slot as well, like so. And once you've got it into that position, guys, hold the back of your computer and you're looking for a confirmation click. And that's exactly what we wanted. So the next thing is we want to return the 2 screws, making sure we don't get any unwanted sag. And then we can plug in our 2 8-pins from our PCIe cables. What I like to do also is just push up on the alternate side and screw in the bottom screw. And then what I can also do, whilst I'm pushing up on that graphics card, I'll put in the top screw, and then it might settle just to where we want it, or potentially a little bit higher, but that's not a bad thing because generally the power cables pull down on them and they form a perfect line then. So let's have a quick look. Bang on. So what we've got to do now, guys, is attach our 2 8-pins. There's one, the exact same for the other one. Now, on our power cables, we've got this here. Now, a lot of people tend to fold this across here and then fold it into here. Can you do that? Yes, you can. Then you're only going to have one cable. I don't personally like doing that. As graphics cards are getting more power hungry, essentially I want to make sure that we're giving the power that's required to the card. If not, you'll tend to find that you get freezes, you may get blue screens, your computer could turn off, and that's quite simply because you're not able to deliver enough power to the actual GPU on request. So this is the reason why most people get extensions, because they would hide these ugly cables, plug them into a nice set of extensions, and then you've got one really nice 8-pin, one really nice 8-pin. So there we have it, guys. Everything is in. Worked a little bit of magic with these PCIe connectors down here. They're not the best looking cables, but they're all black. We've used a few zip ties to tidy them up a little bit, and I don't think it looks bad at all, and I'm really pleased. So overall, guys, really impressed with regards to how this has come together. A few niggles here and there, and we'll come on to them right at the end because I don't want this bit to go on too long. But overall, really pleased. We'll give a slight peel on this all-in-one if I can get this. There we go. Ooh, yeah. So everything is now rocking and raring to go. We'll put the case back together, i.e. side panel, front panel. It's just a few thumb screws. Make sure that when you are putting the front one back on that you are holding it until you get one of the screws in. You don't want that dropping and actually breaking. And again, the side ones have got these rubber grommets that can press into it and should be good to go. I'll be back in a couple of minutes when I've set up, or with the power of YouTube, in the flash, so I can set up a monitor, keyboard, mouse, and we can test boot as well. Right then, guys, we've reached that pivotal part of the build because I'm about to put some power and see if we hit BIOS. I'm hoping and praying to the PC gods that everything works. So here we go. Flick the power. Come on. Get in there. Come on. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fans all lighting up. We've got our RAM, which is fully lit up. Yes, our Z73 is lit up. It's given us details and we've just hit the BIOS, guys. No problem, straight through, no issues. Now, there is a couple of things that I want to speak to you about. So this is not all over and done with here. It's fantastic that we've hit the BIOS, and I'll come on to that very, very shortly. But essentially, we need to install CAM software and rotate that actual display. That's the first thing. We then need to download, obviously, the latest drivers, and then we need to obviously download and sync all the RGB because it's a little bit all over the place at this moment in time. But overall, it's gone really, really well. Few niggles. Things about this particular case that I don't like is the fact that there's a lack of cutouts at the bottom of the actual case. That cable tied here at the back of the case was an absolute pain in my backside because whilst you wanted to get it out, you didn't want to actually be able to get it back in. Whilst it serves its purpose in hiding all those cables, it's a bummer to get back into position. But as you saw a few minutes ago, it tied it up really, really nicely. It's kicking out some cool air, this is. I can feel that, which is really, really good, which means that there's loads of nice, cool, fresh air going into the case. And that's the reason why I've removed the filter on the top, because I don't want to stop or put any restrictions in place for exhausting that warm air either. The PSU, the RM750, comes with these particular cables. They're not the most impressive cables, and the way that these PNY graphics cards actually connect with the connector at the bottom rather than at the top means that they're on show, but I've tried to tidy them up as much as possible. So overall, really, really pleased. We've hit BIOS. I can clearly see here that we're running our 16 gigs worth of RAM at 2133. We need to go in once Windows is downloaded and installed. We need to apply XMP to get 3200 mega transfers per second. See that our CPU fan header is connected as well. And essentially, everything is as it should be. B660, 12th gen, 12700. CPU temps running at 29 degrees. Everything's running as it should do. So all in all, guys, really, really good. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to power down the system. I'm then going to enter my Windows Boot Manager, Windows 10, and then we're going to load on Windows, download all the drivers, and essentially sort this RGB out. Then I can wish this customer, this subscriber, a very nice evening, and I'm sure he'll be going home to test it out. So, guys, what I want to do is just shout in this gentleman so he can do a quick peel, get a first impression on what his thoughts are, just for about 10 seconds, and then we'll crack on.
Oh my god.
What do you think?
It's looking great.
Are you happy?
Of course.
So we'll get this powered off, we'll get your Windows downloaded on it, and then everything's sorted. I'll show you exactly how to do that once we've downloaded Windows, okay? But overall, happy?
Of course.
Good man. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, make sure to smash that like button, guys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. All the very best. Take care. Any questions, leave them down below. I'll be happy to help out. All the very best.